Haniko came to see Kiyoshi. The boys had been friends since they were born, but to be exact, since kindergarten. Now they were in university together and were best friends. They had plans to play today, so Haniko brought out a new disc for the PlayStation. It was about half an hour later when the guy's phone rang. It was his girlfriend calling. Haniko answered her that he would be there in about 20 minutes. Hearing this, Kiyoshi immediately frowned, and as soon as his friend hung up, he started to resent him. After all, they had agreed back in the middle of the week that they would play the console together on the weekend. Haniko replied that he didn't know his girlfriend would call him up. His girlfriend would call him to go to the movies. After that, Kiyoshi couldn't stand it and said that he wasn't his friend after that. If he was normal, he wouldn't have traded his friendship for a skirt. After these words, Haniko immediately headed towards the exit, and finally told his friend that he should also find a girl and arrange his personal life, and not to sit in front of the computer and TV pants all his free time. Kiyoshi wanted to say something in his defense, but his friend slammed the door and left. The young man sat down to play alone, but soon realized that it was not so interesting for him alone, and his mood became spoiled. Turning off the console, went to sleep. Lying in bed, Kiyoshi thought about Haniko's words. Maybe he really was right. After all, the guy was 23 years old, and he had only had one girlfriend, back in high school. He spent all his free time playing games, reading books, and watching anime series. When he went out with friends and spent time in company, he naturally met girls, but it didn't go any further than friendship. Now, lying in bed and thinking about his life, Kiyoshi decided to start changing something. First, he downloaded a dating app. After a little digging in his phone, the guy found a suitable photo for an avatar and uploaded it to his profile. He also wrote a little about himself. Next, Kiyoshi started browsing through the girls' pages. He didn't like the looks of many of the girls, nor did he like what they wrote about themselves and their hobbies. He did tag a couple of girls though. The application was built so that the dialogue began only in case of mutual sympathy, but no one responded immediately. Kiyoshi was a little disappointed that none of the girls had responded to him. At least not yet. Putting his phone away, the guy went to make himself dinner. While he was making himself misoshiru soup, a notification came to his phone. Kiyoshi looked away from cooking. A message from a girl popped up on the screen. "Hello. Am I beautiful?" The guy opened her profile. The picture was a fairly ordinary Japanese woman wearing a medical mask. The face was hard to see, so he ignored her question. Kiyoshi texted her, "Hello. How about we get to know each other?" After a while the girl replied in agreement. The young man liked this girl in communication. She seemed shy, and he always liked modest girls. After a couple of hours of correspondence, he decided to invite her for a walk tomorrow. The girl agreed. The next day, Kiyoshi was going on his first date in a long time after university. He ironed his suit with an uncharacteristic, excessive pedantry, styled his hair and used cologne. The meeting was set for 8 p.m. at a restaurant. Kutisake-onna arrived on time. She looked exactly the same as in the photo, wearing a mask, but Kiyoshi was also wearing a mask like everyone else. The only thing that upset him was that he couldn't see her face behind the mask. They said hello and started looking for a free seat. Finding a free table in the center of the restaurant, the pair sat down opposite each other. The guy took a menu and offered to do the same to his companion. Kuchisake-onna followed suit. Kiyoshi opted for the donburi with fish and the takoyaki, dough balls with boiled octopus. He also ordered himself a water with lemon. Putting the menu aside, the guy asked the girl what she would eat. Kuchisake-onna replied that she wouldn't eat anything. The guy replied that he would have no problem paying for dinner, so she could choose something to eat. But the girl didn't reply anything. A waiter came to their table and took the order from Kiyoshi. While the food was being prepared, the couple talked, but mostly the guy talked. The girl, on the other hand, wasn't much of a talker. She only looked at him and occasionally said something. A couple minutes later, the young man was brought his order. There was delicious fresh food on the table. Kiyoshi offered the girl his dishes, but Kuchisake-onna once again refused. The guy thought it was rather strange. Besides, it made him feel awkward, because his companion would remain hungry, but he did not insist. The young man himself, of course, didn't touch his food either, because he felt uncomfortable eating alone. After an hour and a half, their evening came to an end, and Kiyoshi decided to walk the girl home, but she refused. The guy then decided to take her a cab, and to his great surprise, this time Kuchisake-onna agreed. Through the mobile app, Kiyoshi made an order, clarifying the address. A few minutes later, the car arrived. The girl got into the cab and opened the window. Lastly, the guy told her, "See you later, it was nice to meet you," although he himself didn't realize if it was really true. In response, Kuchisake-onna said, "Am I beautiful?" But before Kiyoshi could answer that question, the cab driver opened the window and looked at him in surprise. And then he pressed the gas. The car sped away quickly. On the way home, the young man thought about tonight and, of course, about the girl. On the one hand, he liked her, but on the other, she was too strange. Practically the entire time they were dating, Kuchisake-onna was silent. Kiyoshi decided that he should probably get to know her better, or maybe look for someone else on the internet to compare her to. When he got home, he immediately went to bed tired. Deciding that he wasn't going to sleep now, the guy opened his phone and went to the dating app. Leafing through the profiles of girls, oddly enough, Kuchisake's profile kept popping up to him. But still, Kiyoshi threw his sympathies to a couple of other girls. When the young man decided it was time to go to sleep, he received a message from the app from Kuchisake-onna, "Am I beautiful?" strangely. But the girl asked the guy this question several times. He decided to answer her yes, but then erased the message and wrote, "Please send me a picture without the mask, then I'll tell you." He wanted to get her to dialogue and learn more about her. A few seconds later came the reply, "See you tomorrow?" Kiyoshi agreed. They set up a meeting for tomorrow night. The young man woke up shattered. He couldn't sleep until morning. All night long, he heard some rustling, scraping, and other noises in the apartment. A couple times he thought he heard someone walking on the floor. It could have been that, because the house he lived in was not new. And sometimes Kiyoshi witnessed the presence of mice in the house. After washing his face and tidying up a bit, the boy started to get ready for university. Opening his bag, he found out that he didn't have his bank card. After searching the house, Kiyoshi remembered that the last time he had gotten it was at a restaurant last night. There was nothing left for him to do but to go to the establishment and ask the staff. Upon reaching the restaurant, the young man found the receptionist and started asking if anyone had seen his card. Kiyoshi was approached by the waiter who had served him yesterday. He said he remembered him, the one who had came to dine alone. His table was in the center of the hall. Kiyoshi said the waiter probably doesn't remember. That's right, he dined here last night, at the table in the center of the hall, not alone, but with a girl. The waiter must have confused him with someone else. But the waiter replied that there was no girl with him. and the card was discovered after the young man left, having forgotten it on the table. Kiyoshi was shocked. He didn't understand how this could be. This waiter guy probably had some kind of problem with his head. The young man once again clarified if he was sure he hadn't seen his companion. The waiter replied firmly that he hadn't, and even named the dishes that Kiyoshi had ordered yesterday. The young man didn't ask any more questions because he was late for university. So he took the card and hurried to the university. There he met his best friend. Kiyoshi was no longer offended by him and decided to share with Haniko that he had a new acquaintance. He told his friend what happened yesterday. Kiyoshi also told about what happened in the morning. Haniko replied with a smile that this girl was obviously a strange girl. She probably never had a boyfriend, so she was just right for him. Kiyoshi didn't react to his friend's teasing in any way. Kutisake-onna was weird, and for some reason he thought about her all the time. In the evening, he still went to the appointed place for the meeting. The young man waited for a very long time, but the girl was still not there. Then Kiyoshi decided to leave, and in order to call a cab, he took out his phone as he suddenly felt the touch of someone's hand on his back. Startled, the guy turned around sharply. Kutisake-onna was standing in front of him. He asked why the girl was late, but she didn't answer anything and again only looked at him. The young man began to boil up inside himself. He was annoyed that the girl didn't answer. "Can you please answer me? Why are you always silent?" he asked Kuchisake. "Am I beautiful?" The same question again. Again. Why does she keep asking it? She clearly has some kind of problem with her head, thought Kiyoshi. The young man decided to ask directly why the girl was asking the same question. But Kuchisake didn't answer and just glared at him. The guy could no longer tolerate these abnormalities. Gathering all the will in a fist, he told her that he would no longer meet with her. At that moment, Kutisake-onna smelled cold. Kiyoshi felt some strange, disgusting, rotten smell. The young man decided to silently walk away, but then the girl grabbed him with her chilling hand. Then he was frightened, shouted in her face to get away. The guy pulled his hand and ran with all his might to the road. There was a vacant cab. Getting into it, the young man drove home. While in his apartment, Kiyoshi couldn't stop thinking about what had happened. He did not understand whether the girl had gone crazy or whether he himself had gone crazy. His pondering was interrupted by the sound of a notification on his phone. It was Kutisake-onna writing. His phone literally started bursting with her messages with the same text. "Am I beautiful? Am I beautiful? Am I beautiful?" The young man got angry and blocked the girl. But that didn't help. After a couple seconds, his phone started receiving messages from an unknown number. "Am I beautiful?" The guy tried to block again, but the number was undefined and blocking was impossible. On his nerves, Kiyoshi threw his phone against the wall, but even still, the messages kept coming. After a minute later, Kuchisake stopped texting. The phone went silent. The young man exhaled, but then he heard the front door creak behind him. Next came footsteps. The guy turned around and asked, "Who's there?" and there was no answer. Kiyoshi's throat was dry, his legs stopped obeying. He wanted to call the police, but when he picked up the phone he realized that phone didn't work. Then the young man decided to go and see if he really was imagining things. As he took small steps closer to the door, he could smell the stench in the hallway. Kiyoshi realized that he was going crazy. Out of desperation and fright, he shouted the same question, "Who the hell is in here?" But this time the young man got an answer. "Am I beautiful?" That's when the guy finally realized that he wasn't alone here. Kiyoshi wanted to say something as he felt someone's cold, stinky hands grabbing him by the shoulders. The hands turned the young man around sharply. In front of him he saw Kutisake-onna. She was standing with a knife in her hand. The girl decided to repeat the question, "Am I beautiful?" The boy decided to answer, "Yes." Kuchisake's eyes filled with blood. She ripped the mask off her face, and now there was a mouth with a wound from ear to ear. The girl's face was disfigured. The mouth was filled with sharp teeth that looked like fangs, and a long tongue came out of her mouth. "And now?" she asked. Kiyoshi shook his head fearfully in agreement. Kuchisake stretched her hand forward and grabbed the guy's hair. Turning his back to her, she carved the exact same smile on his face. The guy yelped in pain and frantically thrashed around, trying to get out. Finishing her work, the girl pushed the young man forward. He fell to his knees. Blood dripped from his mouth. Ahead of him in the mirror, Kiyoshi saw his disfigured, mangled mouth. Turning around, in pain and despair, he began to shout curses at Kuchisake. He called her ugly. The girl was already heading for the exit as she suddenly stopped. In the evening, his mutilated corpse is found in Kiyoshi's apartment. The police are looking for a maniac who could such a ruthless atrocity, but so far all attempts to find him have failed. People say that the guy was killed by the spirit of a woman with a slit mouth.